Hello, my name is Joshua. I'm going to do a video on Steepway's channel. It is the month of January 2023, so let's look at the films and TV shows that I watched in December. As you can see, I have finally got a microphone I received at Christmas, so I can now do it. The first thing I did this month was finish Arrested Development Season 1. I heard this was supposed to be like one of the best comedy TV shows, and it has some really good actors in it, most notably Will Arnett, who has a completely different role to Bojack in this, which is really great to see. I think the comedy and writing in the show is really just perfect. It's just so fast paced and there's constantly something going on. I like all the contrasting personalities in the Bluth family as well, and how things usually go horribly wrong for them. Some plot points and jokes did go over my head a bit due to everything just being so fast paced, but overall it's a very fun, very well written show. I'd give it a 9.5. And then I watched Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I saw the trailer for this film a few months ago and it just looked beautiful. I really love stop motion animation. Fantastic Mr. Fox is like one of my favourite films of all time, so I just had to give this a watch. And it was absolutely beautiful with the animation. But not just that, the voice acting was really great. The music complements the style really well. And overall, it's just a really great adaptation. I think the only other adaptation of Pinocchio that I've seen is the Disney version, which I had on DVD and I watched a lot as a child, I think. But I think this film tops that. It has some really unique ideas and some truly emotional and dark moments, with this film being set in World War One. I do think maybe the songs and musical numbers in this film, especially sung by Pinocchio, are a bit artificial and auto-tuned, which doesn't really complement this like rough style. But overall, it's just a phenomenally animated adaptation that I definitely want to rewatch. And then we are getting into the Christmas stuff, starting with Alf. Somehow I've managed to avoid this film for so many Christmases. Will Ferrell's Buddy is obviously a standout performance, and I think he does a really great job at acting childlike and playful, although he can be a bit too loud and annoying sometimes. I do like the supporting characters in this film, especially James Caan, whose performance feels really subtle but hilarious at the same time. I do think the third act maybe delves into a lot of Christmas cliches, but overall this is a really fun watch that I might watch next year as well. And then I watched Arrested Development Season 2. I think there's a really great follow-up season. I feel like the narrator plays a bigger part in this season as well, and like tells some jokes of his own. Michael Bluth. I like how Michael tries to hide his dad's in the attic of the house and fake his death. I think that's a really fun plot line. And I like how Oscar plays a big part in this season as well. It's just another fun season, very fast-paced, well-written humour. I'd give it a 9.5. And then I've finally finished watching Rick and Morty Season 6. Yes, the season's finally finished, and overall, I think it's pretty good. My complaint about the season would be that there's not really that many standout episodes, but it does have more consistency, whereas Season 5 had the sperm episode. I like how it focuses on the Sanchez family and how they've developed over the course of the show. This show is also very funny and has some very fun sci-fi concepts from episode to episode, and I'm excited to see what Season 7 has in store. I'd give it a solid 7.5. And then I watched A Muppet's Christmas Carol. I heard this is supposed to be one of the best adaptations of A Christmas Carol, so I had to give it a watch. And I came out of this film really loving it. I just feel like the Muppets bring a lot of charm to the story, and the gags and jokes in this film really work and just make this film more memorable. Michael Caine is really great as well, and he does a surprisingly very serious and emotional take on Scrooge. The songs are also very memorable and fun as well. I watched the newly released version with like the cut song like reinstated. I don't understand why it was taken out in the first place, because I think it's a really standout moment for Kane's Scrooge. Overall, I think this is probably one of my favourite Christmas films now, and I'd definitely give it a rewatch next year. And then I finished watching Arrested Development Season 3, the final season. There definitely wasn't another season or two that came out after this one. I think this is a great final season that wraps everything up in a satisfying way, and it kind of like loops back round into the pilot in a way. I found the running jokes throughout the show to be really clever and fun, and the writing to be very fast paced and sharp, which is just a standout for the show for me. Overall, I think the characters of the Bluths are really great, and they really kept me entertained throughout the course of this really great show. Season 3 just wrapped everything up perfectly. I'd give it a 9.5. And then I watched It's a Wonderful Life. I've seen like a lot of Christmas movie lists with this film on number 1, so I really wanted to check this film out. It's on Amazon Prime. I was kind of expecting to find this film boring, seeing as it's like a black and white over 2-hour film from the 40s, and I did start to feel that at the start, but as the story delved deeper into the character of George Bailey, I was really encapsulated on where his life would go. I found the third act, where the angel comes into the picture, to be almost perfect and displays some just really great acting from one of the cast. The film comes to just a very emotional and satisfying ending that I just wasn't expecting from a seemingly boring black and white film. So I give this film a 9.5. And then I watched Love Actually. I was interested to see this Christmas film as well, as it has a lot of well-known British actors. I was expecting this to be an extremely cheesy rom-com, and although there was a lot of moments like that, it was overall a fun and heartwarming film. I do like how they balance all these characters and how all their plot lines connect at the end. I do think some plot lines are much more boring and uninteresting as others, and some just could be removed from the story completely. But overall, I had a relatively good time with this film. I'd give it a 7. And then I watched Spirited. I was interested to watch this film as I like Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, so I decided to get a free trial for Apple TV Plus. I gave this film a watch, and I think Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell are the only two things going for this movie in my opinion. I was put off by the fact that this is a musical going in, but I've watched some pretty good musicals this month, so I had high hopes, but I found the songs to be the things that are ruining the movie. There's just way too many of them, and I just don't think they're well paced throughout the film. There's this side character who's like a love interest for Will Ferrell, and she gets way too many songs, and I just found myself cringing a lot. There is some like fellow kids vibes coming from this film as well. There's a lot of Twitter jokes, and there's like someone called Karen at the start of this film. Like, oh god. I do like the modern take on A Christmas Carol and how he like gets to see behind the scenes on the whole operation. There is some jokes that land, and like I said, I really like Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds' chemistry in this film. I do think also there is a lot of work put into the choreography and set design for the songs, even if they're not that great most of the time. And yeah, I gave it a 5.5. I didn't really like it that much. And then I watched A Charlie Brown Christmas. I did a whole video last year where I reacted to the soundtrack of this film and actually re-listened to it this Christmas because I've actually grown to like it. And obviously, like I said, I bought the free trial for Apple TV Plus and this film was on here, so I decided to give it a watch. It was only 20 minutes long, and overall it was just very delightful, very sweet, and had some really great voice acting. I always found the animation to be very unique, and I feel like it adds to the comedic moments in this film, which was really great. Yeah, it's just a fun 20 minutes short. I really enjoyed it. Very heartwarming. I'd give it a 9.5. And then I watched The Christmas Chronicles. This was another pretty positively rated Christmas film that I wanted to give a watch, mainly because Kurt Russell plays Santa, and everyone talks about Kurt Russell playing Santa. Overall, this film was very fun. I think Russell plays a very entertaining Santa and really makes this film for me because everything around it is not the best. I think the little girl in this film is not the best actor. I get that she's young, but she did get on my nerves a bit. And the older brother just feels like a kind of discount version of Roderick Heffley for like half of this film, before like he kind of swiftly changes his character and starts liking his sister because of Santa. There are so many plot lines in this film that just don't make sense, and it really pissed me off when they revealed that Santa didn't need his hat. And basically the main plot of this film was about getting Santa's hat so he can like teleport and stuff. So why couldn't he have just teleported out of prison? And I get maybe it's like to teach the two siblings a lesson, but it just feels like a complete waste of time. I thought the elves were very weird as well, and although I do kind of like that they had their own language, they're still very creepy. Overall, this is a pretty fun time, and I think it was just worth the watch just to see Kurt Russell's amazing performance as the extremely attractive Santa Claus. And then I finished watching Ben 10. Like I mentioned in last month's video, I'm basing the episodes I watched of this show off like IMDb scores and filler lists. I feel like this is a good concept for a children's TV show, and I like Gwen and the very over athletic grandpa. I just like them as supporting characters throughout the show. I do find the animation to be very interesting as well, with the backdrops being like grainy, which makes a contrast to like the smooth, simplistic character designs. It is lacking on the action side of things a bit, with it just feeling very choppy and messy at points. And there are some moments where it's literally just a still image with a moving background, which is pretty lazy. Some characters just act really stupid in some moments in the show in favour of the plot and episode, so that I can drag the episode out to like 20 minutes. There are some boring episodes and just some moments and characters that I just don't care about. And it's definitely not on the same level as other children's TV shows that I've watched like Avatar, but it is very fun and memorable. And yeah, I'll give it a 7.5. And then I watched Ben 10 Secret of the Omnitrix, which is like the big ending Booby, which is the big ending movie of the series, the big finale. I found this to be like the most interesting and mature of the Ben 10 episodes. It really gives some lore and world building, and finally there's some like good action and not just some like slideshows of action. The animation I feel it just improved in general as well, probably because they had a bigger budget to finish it off. I think this went in cinemas as well, so I just think this film comes to a good conclusion and it ends Ben's story in a really good place. I'd give it an 8. And then I rewatched Die Hard. If you remember, last December I watched 4 of the Die Hard films. I wanted to give this first one a rewatch because when I watched it last December, it just wasn't clicking with me. I felt like I enjoyed Die Hard with a Vengeance much more, but coming back to this film, it clicked with me. Bruce Willis just does a very funny and memorable performance as John McClane, and I don't think any other actor could have pulled it off. And obviously Hans Gruber is an amazing and threatening villain. I like how it feels like a life or death game of hide and seek, and it pulls it off really well. There's just so many iconic and quotable moments from this film, and after watching it for the second time, I can safely say it's one of my favourite Christmas films. And yes, it is a Christmas film. It's a 9.5. And then I watched Miracle on 34th Street. This is the other highly rated Christmas film from the 1940s, other than It's a Wonderful Life. This is not as memorable as that film, but it is very charming and fun. I found the concept of this man who claims to be Santa Claus very fun and interesting, and what different people believe and think about it. I also like the concept of these two stores basically going to war on one another, which eventually turns the film into like a court drama with Santa in the middle of it all. I like how it's not fully revealed if he is the man he says he is, and the ending is very open-ended, which I like. So overall I give it an 8.5. And then for Christmas Eve I watched Klaus. I've had this film on my watch list for a long time now, and I wanted to give it a watch as I heard some very good things about it, and it turned out to be one of the most clever and well animated films I've seen. I feel like the animation style is kind of reminiscent of like an early 2000s 2D Disney film, but it just has a bunch more depth with like 3D elements being introduced, and it just brings this whole world to life. The voice performances are great as well, and they really show a differentiation between all of these characters. I like how Klaus is very non-talkative near the start, and he eventually warms up to the postman, who is very opposing to Klaus. He's very loud and energetic. I love how this film is basically the origin story for Santa Claus, and it explains like all of his presents under the tree business, and I think this film just does it perfectly. I do think that some of the song choices for this film did take me out of it a bit. Apart from that, it's just a phenomenal Christmas film in my opinion. I give it a 9.5. And then I watched the Ghost Christmas special. I've said before that I'm not the biggest fan of the latest season of Ghosts, and I thought it was a bit of a step down from previous seasons, but I thought the special really redeemed itself, and it might just be one of the best episodes in the show like altogether. There's so many heartwarming and emotional moments with Pat in this episode, and I thought the pantomime aspect of it was really fun as well. I just feel like the Alison and Mike stuff is kind of starting to weigh this show down. I just feel like it repeats the same stuff over and over again with their characters, and I would like to see something like Mike bang his head and like begin to see the ghosts now or something. Just switch it up somehow in the next season. But yeah, it was a very good Christmas special. I'll give it an 8.5. And then I watched the Doc Martin Christmas special. I was extremely worried about this because after an almost perfect finale, I thought this might weigh it down a bit, but I don't think it did. It felt much like an epilogue to the show. There was some weird stylistic decisions in this episode that I haven't seen in any other episode of the show, but I guess it was just balls to the walls. It's the final episode of the whole show. There were like these grainy film flashbacks to when the Doc was a child. The Doc hallucinates his dead mother. Overall though, I liked those risks that they took, and it turned out to be a nice little epilogue. Everyone in Port Went is still extremely clumsy though. Like, stop being that clumsy. I'll give it an 8. And then for Boxing Day, I watched Knives Out. Going into this film, I'm not sure if this was going to be my kind of film or not, but coming out, I absolutely loved it. I like how it turns the murder mystery concept on its head and gives us twist after twist. The stacked cast works very well in this film as well, and I like how they flesh out all of these characters from this family and the different perspectives on the murder. The ending was just very satisfying, and it left it a bit open-ended, which I like. I think I'll give it a 10 out of 10. There's nothing really bad about this film. It's really great. And then watched the sequel, Glass Onion. Obviously, one of the standout roles in the first film was Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, and I think he does an even better job in this film. He plays Among Us, by the way. I like how this film kind of throws you in with these characters and the murder mystery in the first half, and then goes back over everything in an extremely different perspective in the second half, culminating in an amazing ending. And and I think it's even more satisfying than the first. I feel like the humour and the like mocking the rich aspect of this film is even more than the first as well, which might go a bit far at some points, but overall this is just almost as good as the original. I'd give it a 9.5. And then I watched Barbarian. I heard this is supposed to be like one of the best horror films of the year, and I wanted to check it out since it was on Disney Plus, and this film was absolutely so crazy that I couldn't help but love it. The first like hour of the film seems like a thriller with like Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise himself taking people to his basement and killing them, but when it turns out that that's not what's going on at all, the film just completely turns on its head. And like, oh my god, Justin Long was introduced like halfway through, and it kind of turned into like a comedy drama for like a little while. I don't really want to spoil anymore, but it diverts expectations perfectly, and I just love it for that. Yes, a 9.5. And then I watched The Banshees of Inisherin. If you haven't noticed yet, I was trying to like watch all the best films of the year, and this film's supposed to be like at the top of a lot of people's lists, so I was very interested to check it out. It was on Disney Plus again, and I didn't think it would be my type of movie. It seemed like a bit of a like slow burner, not really much going on, but I ended up absolutely loving it. The acting is just top tier from everyone here. I found out most of the actors in this film were born in Dublin in Ireland, so I guess that's why they're so good at doing an Irish accent. I really love the cinematography of this film. It kind of feels like I'm part of the island with all those like sweeping shots, getting the viewer familiar with the island itself like it's a character. And the story at hand is just extremely engaging about friendship and losing that friendship. It's a very simple concept, but it builds on it so well, and it made me like feel sorry for both of the friends at the end. I like the deadpan and dark humour of this film as well. It just really adds to the experience and just makes it one of my favourite films of the year. It's probably second to Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a 10. And then I watched Fresh. There's another film that was on Disney Plus, and it's supposed to be one of the best horror films of 2022, so I had to give it a watch. It most notably stars Sebastian Stan, who's Bucky in the MCU, and in this film he plays a straight up cannibal. I found this film to be very disturbing at points, and it has a lot of these like close up shots that feel very claustrophobic and uncomfortable, and it just adds to the tension and whether our like protagonist is going to get out alive or not. A lot of this film felt very unpredictable, and I really wasn't sure if these three girls were going to get away with it during the final act. I like the music in this film as well, and it complements this style of film. It really reminds me of like American Psycho kind of. I do think they maybe try a little bit too hard with the stylized editing and some like camera shots, but overall this is a very tense horror with some really good acting. It's a 9. And then for New Year's Eve I decided to finish off the year with RRR. I was watching this on Netflix, and for some reason Netflix doesn't have like the original language version of the film. I looked it up online, and you can get it on like this India streaming platform, and I was considering subscribing to it for a month just to watch the original language version of this film, but in the end I just decided to watch the Hindi dub. Apart from that issue, this film was a really fun time. It had everything I was expecting from a Bollywood film: over the top action, musical numbers, and over dramatized dialogue. It was just amazing. There's some really great visuals in this film as well, and it just made the film all the more epic. This one was 3 hours long, and I didn't really feel the length, to be honest, because there was just so much going on in every scene. I think this film works very well as a period drama and balances its tones and themes very well with like the whole Bollywood shtick. It's a very, very, very solid film. Very fun. 9.5. So those are all the films that I've watched in December 2022. Yeah, I'm not really currently watching anything. I'll leave that to my January video, I guess. So yeah, goodbye.